And welcome to an episode of DIOTALK. I'm DIOTALK. My guest of the evening, in my opinion, he's the master in building community. You may know him as Jersey City Jeff. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Jeffrey Rowe. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm doing good. Thanks so much for having me on, brother. I
It's an
appreciate
honor having you, man. It's fun. It's an honor. I've been watching all you've been doing. I entered the rabbit hole of your career, and
it.
it's a
Uh-huh.
lot. It's an honor to know how much you have done and have provided to the industry of hip hop, but just
Thank
being
you.
a culture contributor, right? Am I said it all right? And
Yeah.
then, man, everything you've done.
I appreciate that, man. You're gonna make me blush over here, bro. But yeah, I appreciate the kind words, man. And thank you for taking the time to, check me out and see what I've been up to. And it's really good to have you, on the bandwagon of support, man, because there's the group of it is small but mighty at this point,
Yeah,
and we should all be doing what we can to support and amplify each other's great work. And you're doing a lot with it with your show. So
I
it's an
appreciate
honor
it.
to be
Thank
here
you.
as well. Yeah, yeah,
I guess my first question is, and it's
yeah.
and I have I've had a lot of questions, but it's just like I want it like hearing your story, hearing how you break it down is better than me just asking. So,
For
like,
sure.
my first question, if anything, is what inspired you to do what you do?
That is a great place to start. So I guess the inspiration started with the dream as early as childhood, right?
Mm.
Because community management in the digital sense, right? Not it's not like boots on the ground community management in the traditional sense,
Yeah,
right? It's creating relationships that begin online, in most cases, right? And then extend into the real world. So it's kind of like the reverse of community building as we've traditionally known it up until this point. And the thing about it is that, nobody really wakes up with the dream to say, hey, I want to be a community manager when I grow up. You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, one of my colleagues, shout out to Adrian Spire, wrote a book called The Accidental Community Manager because most of us who are in this industry sort of fall into it, and I would say that the journey that brought me to community management began with my initial dream as a child. And from childhood, I always had dreams and aspirations of working somewhere in entertainment and media, right? Like when I was younger, I always had a thought in my mind that I wanted to be an actor for some reason, right? Then as I got on in years into my adolescence, I was watching a lot of Dawson's Creek, and I thought I wanted to be a director. I pivoted from like actor to director without really even, just without even trying my hand at it, right? Just sort of thinking that this is what I want to do based upon what I was seeing, whether it be movies or television shows that I might have been watching at the time. So then in adolescence, and I'm like, oh, I want to be like the next Spielberg, right? And then as I got into teaching myself the craft and got into college years, right, I started to develop an affinity for writing and producing because I started my collegiate career at Hunter College in New York City, and I was going to major in film. When my parents got a wind of that, I mean, they always knew, would always hear me talking about the fact that I either wanted to act or direct or do things in video production. Um, but I think it didn't really hit them how much I wanted to do it until I actually got to college and said, "This is what I'm majoring in. I'm all in." Then they kind of, I guess you could say, downloaded a little bit of their fears, their
mm.
worries, their
Insecurities.
concerns, right, their insecurities onto me about going down that path, and kind of explained it to me as like, well, Poppy, don't pigeonhole yourself. If you're gonna invest in a degree, why don't you pick something that's a little bit more practical, something that you
Safe.
can into any industry, that sort of thing. And it provided me with a moment of pause, so I took a beat to kind of like reevaluate things. And in the process, spent time working in corporate America. I had my first entry level job working at a call center for a bank in Brooklyn, um, and took some time to step away from school, right? Um, and I got to thinking like, well, okay, I want to make my parents happy. I kind of want to get them off my back, but I also still want to pursue the things that I'm passionate about. So I'm like, what's a good business degree that I can pick that will teach me some of those practical skills that my parents want me to have while also allowing me to flex some of that creative muscle that I know I have inside of me. So I was like, boom, marketing, right? So I transferred over to NJCU, changed majors to marketing, but still minored in media arts, which afforded me the capability to still study screenwriting and sound production and video production and all these things. So after when I was just about to finish up with my degree, I graduated 2012 from NJCU. I got an internship working at an ed tech company called 2U. And 2U is an education technology company that partners up with universities around the country. And I think their programs have scaled globally at this point to help facilitate their online degree programs completely online. So this was a company that was founded in 2008. Uh, at the time, online degree programs were didn't have a whole lot of street cred in the business
Yeah,
world. You know
yeah.
what I'm
This
saying
is
it was
like
like
pre.
University of Phoenix, maybe
Yeah.
one or two schools that were kind of like in the game at the time, but people would take a look at that and scoff at it and be like, "Oh, well, you paid for your degree, you didn't really go to school, that kind of thing." There was a stigma around it.
Mm-hmm.
So, 2U sought to flip that perception. They're like, "Okay, well, we're going to show the world that you can get a quality degree and it can be completely online. And the way that we're going to go about doing that is we're going to partner up with the top tier schools in the country.
Yeah.
University of Southern California, Georgetown, University of North Carolina. So my first job working in community management, it was 2011, and I was the community manager for the Masters of Arts in Teaching at USC. And since then, it's been 14 years. I've grown that career, stumbled upon something that I was also passionate about and good at, and that's kind of where I fell in love with community management.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because like I'm not sure if it's the passion or the experience. Like you're very good. You're very good at being a liaison, right? Like I remember the
Ooh.
first time I met you at Moles. Is that the name of the store?
Yeah,
Right?
Morley's. Yep. Yep.
Um, I've had individuals to come on the show and talk about community, but the way you were able
Mhm.
to describe it in nonchalant way, right? Which
Yeah.
nobody has ever been able to describe it the way you have. And
Mm.
like I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not sure it was the passion or just the experience. Like you made it me understand how valuable uh individuals like myself and other companies need someone like
Yeah.
you to help
Right.
their company grow, help their business grow,
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
they choose.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that because that's kind of like something I've had to really figure out on my own, just trial by fire, right? Because when you're thrust into that space, especially with digital community management, like the tech industry really
Hmm.
loves it, right? So a lot of my career has been spent working with tech companies. And when you hear the industry being talked about by folks who are in it, there's a lot of buzzwords that get thrown into the mix and a lot of jargon that folks aren't familiar with, right? So coming into it, coming from where I'm from, and I've always been an intelligent dude with a pretty decent vocabulary and stuff like that. But there's new terms that you get introduced to, and you have to
Yeah,
figure out what does this all mean, and how do I break this down into layman's terms for other folks so that that way they can understand it, right? Because there's still a lot of folks out there who honestly don't know what a community manager does. Whether you're from Jersey City, like me and you,
yeah,
or whether you're in the tech scene and you've been in the professional world for years and years and years. There are folks that I talk to that are established high level executives that don't really understand what community management is. So I think, as you gain some of that experience, you develop a way of speaking about the work that you do in a way that folks can understand it.
yeah.
So yeah.
So like you started, you graduated, that was
Hmm.
your first entry position. What next?
So after 2U, I was working with a snack food subscription service called Graze, and they worked like a Netflix of like snack foods.
Mm,
What I mean when I say that is like you would create an account with them, you would select what your food preferences are, whether you like sweets or whether you like savory things. Um, and they would have an algorithm that would curate a box of snacks for you. So then their whole sort of marketing angle was like, we are delivering your snacks to your door in these portion controlled packs that each of our snacks have a health benefit to them. So rather than if you're on the go digging in or going to a vending machine and getting a bag of chips or pulling out some kind of junk food if you're traveling or something like that, you have your Graze box with you and it has these portion controlled snacks, each of which with a health benefit, so that way you're eating better on the go.
wow.
It was a company that started in the UK in London, and I was brought onto the team to help build their presence in the US. So I was really in charge of their social media presence, in addition to, you know, keeping an
Dude,
ear out.
you were like before what we know now, you're like in that pre-roll because you were
Right.
like this is your like the two companies you mentioned that this is like
Mhm.
before the world has become where you can do that. I find
Yeah.
that so amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's surprising. Like if you were to really go down the rabbit hole of community management, I can be
Hmm.
very honest with you. The first online community was established in 1985, believe it or not. So it started as this thing called The Well. It was a magazine that was created by scientists. And WELL was an acronym that stood for Whole Earth Electronic Link. So think about the most rudimentary iterations of the internet back in the mid 80s, right? And it started with them wanting to digitize the magazine. So the magazine basically turned into a discussion forum online where scientists would post different questions about different topics within science, right? And they would answer each other's questions. So that's the earliest iteration of an online community. And then once they did that, they figured, well, if we can do this for science, we can do this for any topic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And online communities have been prevalent ever since. So, it was this was still in sort of like that pre-roll for me in my journey in community management, but there was stuff going on way before I even got into it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, the most thriving communities, and we see this more now than ever today, are gaming communities, right? Like some of the OGs that are colleagues of mine that I've worked with over the years, they got their start by being volunteer moderators for like PlayStation, or Sony, and then they see, oh, look, this is a really engaged member of our community under PlayStation for whatever game, for such and such game. And then they'll recruit those people and bring them in and say, hey, you want to work for the company? You know? So a lot of that stuff was going on before I got involved.
Wow. It's like you also like it's almost like you also do like scouting for potential. Right
Yeah.
when you're doing that community, which I think you're very good at because I've seen your social media. You have this
Mhm.
great connection and relationship with the people, and as a
Yes.
community leader, right, and manager, like that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like there's nothing is going to poise you for success more as a community manager than just being yourself and really being the kind of person who's thoughtful and who's got some heart to them, When you have those things and that just positions you to connect with people in a much more meaningful way because they can feel your sincerity and they can feel your good energy, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you started this one. What's
hmm
next?
So Grays, I did that for about a year and change, and then I actually joined the team at SiriusXM in 2015.
Nice.
I started working with their listener care team as a social media coordinator. So a lot of that job entailed me keeping my ears to the ground in terms of their listener community, making sure that I capture all of the feedback that they're sending us through different social channels and things like that, and making sure that all of the valuable feedback got communicated to stakeholders within the company, especially the ones that were responsible for our content production. So I'd be meeting with editorial teams to say, hey, the community is really liking this about whatever show, like keep doing that, or they really hate this going on this other channel, yada yada yada. And yeah, just like being there as a support for the community. So yeah, I did that with SiriusXM for about 2 years, from 2015 to 2017. At which point I left Jersey and I moved to Austin, Texas. Uh, I then started working with a company who, when I joined them, they were called Spreadfast, and Spreadfast was a web-based social media platform that allowed for brands and businesses to manage all of their social media channels from one platform. So you log into Spreadfast, you have access to your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter, YouTube, you name it. Any social platform, you can manage it all from there. So that way you can see what everybody's saying at the same time. You can respond to people in a timely and efficient manner. And you can capture that feedback that I was responsible for capturing back at
Yeah,
Sirius.
yeah.
So it's interesting because I started working with Spreadfast, and while I was working at SiriusXM, my boss at the time, he assigned me the task of figuring out which was going to be our next social media platform to use
Mm.
for community, right? So at the time we were using we first started with a Salesforce product that I don't even think exists anymore, called Social Studio. And then we had pivoted over to a platform called Sprinkler. So Sprinkler was another one, very similar to Spreadfast, and we weren't really enjoying the user experience. So my boss was like, "Hey, take a look around, see if you find another platform that maybe works a little bit better for us." Yada yada yada. And I ended up coming up with a short list of Spreadfast and this other platform called Lithium. So Lithium, very similar to Spreadfast, but specifically for online communities. Now, here's where I'm going to start to talk to you about the the similarities and the differences between social media management and
Mm.
community management, right?
Let's
Because
go. Let's go.
a
Yes.
lot of people get those two things confused, but they do share a lot of synergies, but they're not one and the same, right? So the way that I explain it to folks is social media management is a customer acquisition tool that's used to build brand awareness and bring new customers in the door, right? It's one to many messaging. You're sending out whatever it is that you're posting, whatever it is that you're
You're
selling.
bombarding people,
Right.
inboxing.
Whatever you want people to get to look at, that's what you're putting out. That's what social media management is about. It's about content output. Whereas community management is a customer retention tool that's
Input.
designed for you to build meaningful and authentic relationships with your customers. So after you already have a customer, what's going to keep them coming back, right? How can you create opportunities for you to cross sell or upsell on some of your other products? There's so many use cases for community management that can deliver value to different parts of an organization, whether it be customer feedback. If you're a tech company, which again, tech loves community, you probably have a product team, and you might want to start a part of your community that's dedicated to product ideation, right? So, oh, we'd really love to have this feature with the software, or we'd really love if we'd be able to do this, like you mentioned earlier, using a Surface Pro, right? Microsoft has a thriving community of folks that are all in there, always talking to each other. And if you're creating that space, let's say in a customer support example, right? That's probably the easiest one.
Mhm.
If you're creating a space where your customers can come together and ask each other questions about how they can do different things with your software, then guess what they're not going to be doing? They're not going to be hitting up your customer support team to open up a ticket. And in that way, you're saving the company money, right? It's called case deflection.
Mm.
So yeah, getting back to what I was mentioning about the pivot from Jersey to Austin, from Sirius to Spreadfast. I had come up with that short list of Spreadfast and Lithium and proposed that to my boss at SiriusXM. I think they ended up either staying with Sprinkler or whatever. But I ended up going to work for Spreadfast, this company that I admired their product. I had used it before, and I was a fan of it. So I ended up joining the team in 2017. And a year later, they end up merging with Lithium. and they become a newly branded company called Koros. And now Koros is one of the leading online community software platforms on the market. So yeah, that brings me to Austin, Texas, to Koros, and for the 3 years that I was there, I was working as a senior community manager on their strategic services team. And what that means is that uh, at Koros, we had a team that functioned like a business within the business. So the strategic services team, shout out to my strat fam, Miss Olia, very much. We were responsible for a subset of our customers who either had no community management teams to speak of or had small teams that weren't operating at scale yet. So what they would do is tap my team for additional services. So we kind of worked like an agency within the business, and we were
Hmm.
serving multiple customers at the same time. Our biggest customer, who was more like a partner at the time, was Facebook. Before Facebook became Meta and they were
Hmm.
just called Facebook, that was our biggest customer. So I worked very closely with the team at Facebook on a lot of different projects. This was back during the days where they still had Facebook Watch, which was their whole like foray into streaming television. So got
Yeah.
to do community management for shows like Red Table Talk, the Jada Pinkett show, and a number of other shows that they had under their umbrella. They had one that was a reality show for Lamar Ball and
Yeah.
his kids that are in the league and stuff. Ball in the Family, that was a big one too. But yeah, also worked on projects that weren't as sexy as that, but still very like very interesting to be a part of. So I don't know if you remember, but back in 2018, when all of the big tech companies got called in to testify before
Yeah.
Congress about all the data privacy issues,
Yeah.
like my team was using the Corals platform because we had a module within the software. There was a product that we called social listening, and it allowed for you to create queries using like Boolean search methods to tap into any kind of conversation that might have been taking place on social media. So we had created, very rich queries to tap into some of this conversation, and we had to deliver reports about what people were saying about this congressional hearing.
Now, was
Uh,
it? I
mhm.
don't mean to cut you off, but
No, you good?
was that something like? And I just want to clarify, was is that something like to your just like people are live like on Facebook, or that's something you're exceeding their privacy?
No, we're talking about publicly viewable comments
Got it.
on
All right.
social media. Like
Okay.
if you had someone who had a private account
Mm-hmm.
or was posting comments and then hiding them or anything like that, we wouldn't be
Mm,
able to see stuff like that.
got it. So
But if it
everything
was,
public.
yeah, anything that was publicly viewable on social media, we could see it.
Okay, cool.
Um, but to your point, when it came to community management, and if there were folks that were members of communities that we were managing who happened to be making public posts that might have been either unsavory or violated community guidelines in any sort of way, then we would be responsible for either flagging those or hiding those
Hmm.
or, delivering warnings out to people about, hey, you submitted this comment, it goes
Yeah.
against our community guidelines, strike one, that sort of deal. So yeah, that was an interesting time working at Koros because I gained a lot of experience across a lot of different industries because not only was I working very closely with Facebook, but I was also working with companies like H&R Block, Best Buy, the pharmaceutical company Bayer, so I got to see community management through a lot of different lenses during that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine, and you're like in those situations, those meetings, like in the radio station, Shay, right, 45, and we're like,
Yes.
you have to deliver negative feedback. Like
Hmm.
if your job is to study what's going on, right? And
Right.
I can imagine like certain people didn't like the feedback you were giving them. How was that for you? How were you able to handle it and overcome those
Yeah.
situations?
Yeah. So
Because it's tough.
it is tough. And a lot of those situations were a bigger factor working at Coros than they were at SiriusXM because
Wow.
SiriusXM's large company, right?
Mhm.
So all I really was the messenger. as serious, right? It's like, here's what the people are saying. Take what you want and do with it what you want. You know what I'm saying? Whereas at Koros, the clients that we were working with, not only did we have to observe and report the insights that we were getting from the community, but also provide them with recommendations on what to do next.
Mm.
So you can imagine we had to frame those things in a very careful kind of way because we don't want to say, hey, you guys are doing a shit job, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you go month over month, because a lot of these projects would be giving reports month over month. This is how you're performing this
Yeah.
month. This is what you should do next month, et cetera, et cetera. When you're delivering the same reports with the same recommendations, because
Constantly.
your client's not taking your recommendations and acting on them, but then they come back to you and say things like, hey, what's up with this report? It looks just like last month's, and it's like, well, you didn't do anything really different this month,
Yeah.
so, maybe you should try some of the things that we recommended to you. Those kind of conversations would sometimes be a little bit tricky to navigate, right? Because you're working with teams who are also working with teams above them, and they have pressure coming down on them from the higher ups at Facebook or whatever company it
Yeah.
might be, right? So that pressure is trickling down onto your team, and it's like, hey, listen, you guys hired us
Hmm.
to give you our expert opinion, so here it is.
Wow.
Yeah,
Now, from like, I know we talked like a year ago. You took the leap of faith and you started your own business.
yeah,
How much how do I put this, right? How much of everything you took in, right,
yeah,
led you to say, fuck it, I'm gonna do this for myself. If I could do it there, I could do it for myself because I believe you can do it for yourself.
right.
How much was that a game changer for you? And to that point and say, I'm doing this, this is what's happening, let's go.
With me only being like a year into this, I I gotta say that I'm I'm not remembering how you referred it to, but like the opportunities, I guess that you could
Yeah.
say open up once you take that leap of faith. Like I think I have yet to see what some of those opportunities are. Like I think that they're still ahead of me, the vast majority of them. But what I can tell you over the past year is that, once I made that decision, I did start to feel things open up a little bit. I did start to feel a little bit of like, okay, there's there's some wind beneath my wings now that I'm trying to be out here flapping them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that over the past year came in the form of just me getting the opportunity to establish connections and begin to build relationships with people that I probably didn't think I was ever going to meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that, and I look forward to more of that. I think part of that was also me networking in a different kind of way too. Because I've always been a big networker, and I've always sought out to connect with individuals of a like mind that I can learn from.
Mm.
So really, with me making the decision to start my own business now, it was like, okay, it's time for me to dial it up a little bit more, and let me experiment a little bit, and let me start doing what I've always been good at, but doing them in different spaces. You know, so by dialing it up and by finding a playground to test things out, that's sort of what contributed to the opportunity to connect with different folks in different spaces and for them to really see, um, you know, so the value that I bring, with what I've
Mm.
been up to,
Yeah.
and that feeds my curiosity to be like, okay, well, now I feel like I'm onto something here, so let me continue to do this in a way where, because I honestly feel like with me having forged this career in community management, doing this, being able to do this for 14 years, as challenging as it may have been during this time, it's also been a great privilege. It's a career path that has taken good care of me up until this point. So, but I know that that's a privilege, and I know that a lot of people that come from where I come from haven't had the same privilege, and I want to bring some of those
Yeah.
gems I've learned in my career and bring it back to my people.
Yeah. Was it like for me, for example, you know, before I jumped into this entrepreneurship, I was an operation manager.
Okay.
I've run property from New York to New Jersey, Pennsylvania,
Yep.
managing people. And for me, it's like not just the fact that my son got diagnosed and that was a world change in itself, right? But for
Hmm.
me, it got to a point where like, what's next for me? Like
Right.
eventually, like I want to do something that makes me happy,
Right.
right? Like, was it that, not similar, but was that something that occurred to you and we're like, because I see you doing what you're doing, man, and you're so happy, and it's not like happiness making believe, like organic, like genuine happiness. Like I see you
Yeah.
smile, I see you like you're pumped up, you're fired up, like your
Yeah.
eyes, like glitter of joy.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, man, because that provides me with just more confirmation to keep going. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of that played into it. You know what they say, like if you're working a 9 to 5, you're working to bring somebody else's dreams to life. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it's like you do get to those points in your career that are frustrating, that bring you to that point where you're just like, fuck it. If I'm not getting anywhere doing this, and I'm burning out, working at somebody else's company, then I might as well start some shit of my own.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely the kind of thing that, the dream never dies. So regardless of whether I pivoted over and found this career in community management that I truly love and that I'm truly passionate about, you still have that voice in the back of your head that said, well, what about movies, bro? What about,
Hmm.
what about writing? What about producing? What about things like that? So then those dreams start to creep up on you in such a way where the voice becomes so loud that you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
And now what I would say at this point in my career is like, now I got to take the career that I was able to stumble on, thank God, um, and find a way to mix it with the dream. How can I take these two things and mix them together? And I'm finding a lot of sense of fulfillment and sense of purpose coming out of that. So that's one thing that provides me with that confirmation, and getting to hear you describe and see things like a glimmer of joy in my eye from doing that. That's just like even more like, come on, let's keep going with it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and just to clarify, there's nothing wrong with a 9 to 5, right?
No, not
Um,
at all. Hey,
but
listen,
it,
man.
but
Yo, let me see something, bro.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
Like, hey, when you're just getting started out, self-employed is a fancy word for unemployed. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I am by all means, still in search of my next adventure because I'm not currently working full time
Yeah,
with an organization at the moment. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Um, so yeah, still plugging away on that front too. And listen, we all got to pay the bills. We can't all afford. We don't have the luxury of being able to just jump out the window. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? So definitely, yo, if you got a job, keep it. If you're
yeah,
pursuing your dream, don't just go balls to the wall and think
yeah,
that,
yeah,
because
100%.
you're still gonna have to put in the work. You're still gonna have to make sacrifices, and you're still gonna have to show up.
Yeah.
You know,
I tell everyone your full time is your regular job and your part time is your dream.
right?
Until your dream becomes a full time and that full time regular job disappears. But you
Correct.
get some like in some way or form, you have to feed your dream, right? You have to contribute to that, because nothing happens
100%.
overnight, right?
Right.
Especially
Right.
like, you have such a rich heritage. Your dad being Irish, your mother's Puerto Rican,
Yep.
uh, growing up in the 80s, 90s with so
Yeah.
much influence and inspiration. Like I feel like people need to hear more individuals like yourself, hear your career, hear your passion, your experience, but also see you grow because you're a source of inspiration as well to your community.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, man. Like, the folks that have joined me along this adventure so far, I'm grateful for every one of them, and they continue to provide inspiration and motivation to me to this day. And to your point, man, now more than ever, we have to be having conversations like this. We have to be lifting each other up and leaning even further into community now more than ever. It's super important. I actually just saw an article that came out. One of my inspirations too, Ida Rodriguez, a great comedian. Um, and also an activist in her own right, just published an article that I was just starting to read before we hopped on here, man. But to that point, yeah, now we need it now more than ever because, folks, a lot of folks that haven't made a pivot or made I feel like there was a lot of great momentum that started with COVID, right? A lot
Yeah.
of people had to really reflect, do some soul searching and find out new ways to make a living, you know? Um and then those of us who didn't do it during COVID, I feel like are doing it now.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say I'm one of those that, had that period of awakening just after COVID.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know this is kind of random, but I just
Mhm.
want to ask you, it's like, have you ever thought about doing like radio? Because you have such a great voice to be in on the radio. Like, has that ever occurred to you, past your mind? I'm sure you've been curious.
I would say that it's probably become more of a curiosity over the past year.
Hmm.
As I reflect upon times where I've been on the radio, like I'm on the radio now more than ever, right? Because I call into my favorite shows on
Yeah.
Shake 5 and stuff like that, and I have developed a rapport with a lot of the hosts on that channel. So they have a sense for my personality. They have a sense for what are the kinds of things I might say while I'm on the air. And I think that helps to provide them with good radio for their shows, for their respective shows. Um, and yeah, it's got me a little bit curious about that. It's actually made me more confident to embark on my podcast journey. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So this will be the real time for me to really test my chops, and
Yeah.
develop my voice as someone who's behind the mic.
No, I think I guess just keep doing it and you get better. Like
Yep.
just talking to you right now, I feel like you're better than me. Like
Yeah.
I have this thick voice, right? I slur my words a lot. So like I think you'll be very good at it. Can you
Appreciate that.
share some light, talk about a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast is called Beats, Rhymes, y Comunidad. It's this little logo right next to me over here, right? And I chose the name Beats, Rhymes, y Comunidad because number one, the main theme of the show is really exploring the intersection of community management and the culture.
Mm.
And I don't just mean hip hop culture when I say that, although one of the things that has taken place with me over the past year, right? Going back to my point about establishing connections and beginning to build relationships, my relationship with hip hop became a lot more intimate over the course of last year. I've always been a hip hop kid, but my palette for music is very wide. I listen to everything. Um, but my relationship with hip hop grew more intimate last year in that I attended a masterclass certification program with KRS-One, and I got
Nice.
certified under the Temple of Hip Hop, and I am now a certified hip hop cultural
Let's
specialist.
go.
So again, it's like taking the dream stuff and mixing it with the career stuff. You know what I'm saying? So with the show, with Beats Rhymes y Comunidad, which I feel like I'm gonna start calling it BRC soon, um, I want to explore the intersection of community management and culture, whether that be music, art, television, film. Like, let's just make some salsa here and see
Yeah.
what we get.
Do what
You
you love.
know,
Yes.
yeah, and then, a lot of my colleagues who have consultancies of their own, because the show is really also a vehicle, right? It's a vehicle to bring awareness to my consultancy, which the name of my consultancy is Fiesta Alegre Community Consulting, right? That is the business that I started last year. That is what I'm getting off the ground to serve entrepreneurs who have brands or companies that are owned and operated by members of the BIPOC community and those of our allies, right? This is the way that I take the gems from my career and bring it back to my people, right? So, a lot of my colleagues and the OGs in the community management game who've been doing this for way longer than I have, they all have consultancies of their own and they all have podcasts too. And I have great respect and admiration for them. But I just wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to look at community management through another lens. I want to talk about what it is that I do professionally in a much more casual way. And I want to put a spotlight on folks that are building community in their own right, but don't necessarily have the words community manager in
Yeah.
their job title, because
Yeah.
we're all, as human beings, we're hardwired to gravitate towards community. As a matter of fact, there's statistics out there that could tell you that right now humanity is suffering from an epidemic of loneliness. Despite how interconnected we are, due to, given the advent of technology, we still find ourselves feeling lonely and depressed.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like, if my job as a community manager is to alleviate some of those feelings and provide more of a sense of belonging and feeling like you're a part of something that's bigger than yourself, then I'm going to start my own thing to do it in my own way because this is the best way I know how to. You
Yes.
get going back to that fuck it point in your career, when you're working in corporate America for long enough and you get to see that although a lot of companies that are out there know that they need a community team and might have some companies might have teams of their own. The shit about it, D, is that when when there's a recession or when budgets dry up and shit gets a little bit weird and it's
Stop
time
letting
for
go.
layoffs, usually my team are one of the first ones to go. So the problem here is that a lot of companies still perceive community managers as a nice to have
Yeah, they don't see
rather,
the value in
rather
it.
than a necessity. They don't see the value. So it's like I got to affect I got to communicate this value in the best way that I know how, and this is how I'm going to do it with the consultancy and with the show. So that's what the show seeks to do, is to explore that intersection and to put a spotlight on other people that are building community in their own right, that are doing dope shit out there. I
Yeah.
don't want to just be like it be, oh, look at me and my consultancy. Like I
No,
want to
you know
share the
what it is
stage
too?
with,
It's like
yeah.
there's a lot of people doing dope shit, right? And like this took like I love the fact that you diverse yourself to the podcast industry because it's a unique way of doing new media and where you don't have to it's like radio. I love radio, but radio is not you're not able to be you because there's sessions. It's like you're having talking about we gotta go commercial, the song gotta play and then go back. Right?
Right,
Here
right,
you're able to like first of all you get to get shit off your chest, right? You get to
yeah,
talk about things you know, right? Things that
hmm,
people may not know of your experience, right? But
yeah,
also like you get to choose who you want to give the opportunities. A lot of these people in the podcast industry that are like on the top 10, right? They already have
hmm,
money. They've been established through other industries. So right
correct,
now, individuals like ourselves, we're climbing up to get to those spots.
yep,
And if we could do it where we're bringing, hey, I'm gonna take you with me. I'm gonna
hmm,
shout you out. I'm gonna share your content. I'm gonna do what I can. Even if I don't make it, the whole point is to help one another. One of us has to make it. Because
absolutely.
I'd rather be represented if somebody represents me and everything I put in than have
Hmm.
somebody who doesn't know me and doesn't bring value to my community.
Yeah, 100%, man. Each one teach one, right? And going back to one of my inspirations, Ida Rodriguez, when she was coming up, she made a deal. She made a pact with Tiffany Haddish that, hey,
Mm,
whichever one of us makes it first, the other one throws the rope back and brings the other
yes.
one with them. And that's really what we're here to do, man. It's to support each other, and as they say, a rising tide lifts all ships.
I'm into that, man. So what
Yeah,
else you
man.
got? Before we go, what else you going? What you else you got? Tell the people what you got going
Man,
on, man.
my
Because you're
God.
a busy dude.
Yeah, dude, we're gearing up for launch with the show, getting my ducks in order in terms of the final design for the site, for the consultancy, and just making sure that there's a cohesive ecosystem when people come to my platform and explore the different avenues of it, so that way they don't get lost. And I got, links that work, shit like
Yeah,
all the unsexy parts of the job, the back end tech administrative tasks that come with launching your own business, launching your own endeavor. But I'm excited, man. The first season is pretty much locked and loaded right now. We've got a lot of good stuff coming in. I'm bringing in, OGs from the community industry.
Let's
I'm also
go.
bringing in some folks from the hip hop scene. This first season is probably gonna go a little heavy into this group, the Arsonists, from the '90s, man, underground hip hop group, man. Big ups to the
Let's
Arsonists.
go.
They got a couple of the guys from there that are slotted in for the first season, and actually just had a conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine who we connected on Instagram. She caught me out in the wild. This was like one of those moments where I was like out in the wild, and somebody
Yeah.
came up to me and they were like, "Yo, you're Jersey City Jeff, right?" And I was like,
Yes.
somebody spotted me. Oh
Yeah.
shit. So, but yeah, Zenobia Simmons, shout out to her, man. She actually was the publicist and the manager for the Arsonist for a period of time. So I'm very happy with the way the first season's coming together. I think it's going to be a good representation of what it is that I'm aiming to achieve with the show, while also, paying homage to a lot of the folks and the inspiration that got me here to begin with. So good things,
Boom. I
good
can't
things
wait,
all
man.
around.
I can't
Yeah,
wait. Can't
man.
wait.
Gonna
Bro,
be
thank you
fun.
for joining me. It's been an honor talking to you, man. Hearing your
Likewise, my
transition, your
brother.
story, my
You're
brother.
gonna have to return the favor to me now, bro.
Yes, yes,
You're on the
yes.
hook now. We need you on Beats Rhymes y Comunidad. You're gonna
Yo,
be
yes,
season 2, bro.
yes, yes. It'll be an honor to contribute to your success
Yeah,
because
man.
you will be
Likewise.
successful.
As will you, my friend. As will you. See, you way ahead of me. You got the show going. You got the merch going. I see you out here, man. I did my
Nah.
homework on you too, son.
Listen, before we go, please tell the people where they can find you at.
Jersey City Jeff on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time at. I have tried to update my usernames on all platforms, but come check me out on Instagram, Jersey City Jeff. It links out to the podcast. It links out to the consultancy, which are still a little bit under construction, but we're almost there, and a lot of this journey is going to be me building in public anyway. So,
Yes.
come along for the ride. I welcome all forms of comments, thoughts, constructive criticisms, and feedback. So holla at your boy.
Boom. Go check him out. Go follow him. Go support him. Go hit him up. Just because he's under construction doesn't mean he can't help you. Go follow him.
Absolutely.
Go support him. And before we go, I really want to give a shout out to this gentleman because I met him the same day I met Jersey City Jeff. Gerardo Luis Alvarez. Go check out his podcast,
My boy
Siempre
G.
Palante. Culture.
That's right.
Information, history.
Mhm.
And I'll say this is probably the only individual I've ever met that he's in person like he's in the episode. So much energy, so much charisma, super humble.
Yeah. Another
Go,
great voice for radio. Yep.
yes, yes.
Yep.
Make sure you go check him out. That is Siempre Palante on Spotify. But make sure
SP always forward on Instagram too.
yes,
SP dot always forward on Instagram. Salute, Giraldo. You are my brother. And yeah, man, siempre pa'lante all the way too.
yes. And before you go do that, go check Jersey City Jeff.
Yeah,
Make
man.
sure you follow me on Instagram, Mr. James Propertain, DIOTALK Podcast. Like and subscribe our YouTube channel. We hit 10K. Please support us so we can continue to support these amazing entrepreneurs like Jeff here. I'm out, guys. Have a good night.